welcome to March's Kickstarter roundup from Rule of Carnage. There's been a good few interesting campaigns this month. We've got some games, we've got some accessories, plenty of models, plenty of STLs. So we're going to launch straight in with the first of a couple of game campaigns, and it is Fantasy Frenzy 3D Printable Miniature Madness by Dice Heads. So this is a game from a repeat Kickstarter creator, somebody we featured previously on the channel, and I've seen this game sort of live at conventions. It's a really fun little skirmish game, but particularly I think what really endears it to me and really sort of catches my eye with it is it's really directed and intended for younger players. Younger people we might want to sort of introduce into the hobby, get playing, get interested, maybe a younger family member, or just somebody in a club environment that you want to sort of get interested in some skirmish gaming, some miniatures gaming, and I think that's really cool. I think it's really valuable. I think it's really worthwhile. The more sort of younger people we can bring into the hobby, maybe I'm just getting older and now I'm sort of having an eye on my youngster and about what's going to get him gaming with miniatures, but I think it's a really worthwhile project. I think it's something worth keeping an eye on. This particular campaign, it's for a fully printable game, so it comes with STLs for the miniatures, it comes with downloadable rules, it's got cards that you can play. The game is very sort of card driven, very sort of simple sets of stats, but loads of fun, cool synergies, ways of getting your gang to sort of work together to complete their objectives. Well worth checking out, well worth looking over. If you want something that's just got a bit of cartoony funness to it, got a bit of lightness to it, you may want to move away from the whole sort of grimdark area, or certainly if you've got somebody younger in your life that you want to introduce to the fun of miniatures tabletop gaming, definitely give this one a check out, give it a look over. Okay, second up of the game campaigns we've got this week is All That's Left Zombie Wargaming Rules and Miniatures by HF Wargaming. So this is a first time creator and it's very much a rule set from an independent designer and creator. The game is based around a zombie post-apocalyptic situation and it is very, very campaign driven in its sort of design and its ideals and its ideas. The skirmish game itself looks interesting. It's got noise level sort of abilities for the zombies that are a sort of environmental threat for the players. So there's definitely, I think, probably an option here for a level of cooperative or solo play, as well as oppositional and competitive play. So it looks like an interesting set of rules. The campaign again is STLs as well as downloadable rules, so you can pick up everything you need to play on the campaign. And I think if you're looking certainly for a sort of post-apocalyptic zombie skirmish game, but if you're looking for something with a campaign setting, a game that is campaign setting driven, if you're looking for something that is progression system driven, and certainly if you're looking for something with an environmental threat, something within the game that's going to be a problem for the players and for your sort of going about and doing what you're trying to achieve, I think this one's well worth checking out. Like I say, with a small campaign, independent designer, every single backer I think is really going to count for this campaign, so definitely swing by, give it a look over, give them just a bit of support. You don't have to necessarily go in for the full level, but just give them support, give them a look over and give them a check out. I know that everything's going to count for them. Okay, moving on from our game campaigns, we've got the Accessories campaign this month, and it is RGG 360 degree painting handle for miniature painting by Redgrass. So from a very, very small campaign where just a few backers is going to really count, to a much, much larger campaign. This one's going absolutely great guns. It's for a handle for attaching your minis to so that you can paint them more easily. It has all the sort of upgrades for that sort of thing you'd expect. It's 360-degree rotatable. It has elements for detaching and reattaching bases and minis. I mean, it's ultimately a really handy painting accessory if you've got fat clumsy fingers and you find they keep getting in the way of when you're holding your mini and you're going to stick your finger into the bit you've just painted and ruin your paint job, and you want something that will go underneath the mini and allow you to hold it separately from anywhere you want to get paint on. It's, you know, many people, myself included, it's about bits of cork and blue tack and paint pots, and just to have something designed for the purpose, you know, something that's going to be robust and reusable and make things quicker and easier and get paint jobs done more quickly and more easily. It's a simple accessory, well worth picking up. I think it's a simple choice for anybody who's a regular minis painter, who wants a higher end finish more quickly, more easily on their minis. So well worth checking that one out. A really strong campaign, and I think, you know, a solid product. Okay, moving on to our physical model reward campaigns. First up this month, we've got Vikings 28mm Dark Age Early Medieval Miniatures by Footsore Miniatures and Games. Well, if you are watching this channel and you're not aware of Footsore, I think something possibly has gone a little bit awry here. But Footsore do some lovely minis, mainly historicals, and certainly this campaign is, you know, very much within that brand. Obviously Vikings 28mm, I personally am instantly leaping towards something like Saga, and very much these guys are put together, I think, with that in mind. You know, they're coming in sets of 4 and they're very suitable for your Huskarls and, you know, things of that nature. But these guys will work absolutely in any sort of skirmish level historical miniatures gaming. So there's absolutely tons of games out there. I'm not going to list all of them that these guys would work for. Myself, I love Saga, and I'd very much be looking at them for that. But it's always a handy set of minis. Guys like Vikings, you know, they're going to work in all sorts of settings, not just historical. These guys can work brilliantly in things like fantasy, you know, all sorts of options, all sorts of settings. They will work in almost anything you can think of, and loads of different units within this campaign. You know, you've got all of the options there for, you know, anything you can think of suitably for a Viking warband. You're going to have supported, have options for, and a few bits and pieces a little bit out of the ordinary. There's some bow-armed miniatures, you know, that you don't, things like that you don't always see within a Viking force. So well worth checking out from an incredibly reliable repeat creator. You know, top grade minis, totally reliable, the most sort of close you can get to a guarantee on Kickstarter. Well worth giving this one a look over. Okay, next up for our model campaigns, we've got The Cult Rises by Aaron. So this, I think, is interesting, a slightly smaller campaign for a set of cultist miniatures. Usually these are the sorts of guys that I think of as the sort of the minions of the bad guy, the maybe sort of background elements within something like 7TV or Pulp Alley or something like that. What I think is particularly fun about this campaign, because we do see cultists pop up quite regularly, is that there's a variety of, let's say, cultist flavours. There's different types, from the sort of full-on betentacled guys to sort of a more, you know, standardized minions, and different cultists for different, let's say, sort of ultimate bad guys. So these guys look like you can personalize the minions to the story that you're wanting to tell, which I think is a really cool idea and a really nice opportunity, just to make your guys who are sort of literally faceless in their hooded coverings a little bit less faceless and have a bit more identity and theming to them. So obviously, you know, if you're using them as sort of background bad guys and minions, a little bit of theming is nice. If you're considering using, you know, cultists for the main element of a warband that you're using, if you want something a bit sort of sinister and sort of cultist and worshipy for your your villains that you want to actually, foreground and make look cool and use within a warband, then you absolutely want these guys with their extra bit of character, extra bit of a sense of identity, something we can have a bit of fun painting them up, putting them together, and actually theming them. So well worth checking these guys out, certainly if you're into any kind of pulp gaming, any kind of horror gaming, and certainly if you're thinking of putting together a cultist warband of your own, well worth giving it a look over, well worth checking it out. Okay, next up for our models campaigns, we've got 28mm Space Dwarves by Warblade Miniatures. So we've recently been seeing quite a few campaigns for Space Dwarf, sci-fi style dwarf squats, whatever you want to call them, on Kickstarter. This one I think is really nice though. It's a campaign for really a single unit of metal miniatures. What makes them a little bit unusual is that these are some jump pack armed space dwarves. So sort of fast assault or aggressive attacking space dwarves, which doesn't make them sort of completely unusual and weird. They still sort of will match into most space dwarf sci-fi themed armies, but it gives them a little bit of something unusual. It's not something you see every day popping up on Kickstarter, particularly for the dwarf factions. So I think well worth giving this one a look over. Certainly if you are putting together a dwarf themed sci-fi sort of mass battle army, strongly recommend stopping by, picking these guys up. Really lovely looking sculpts, nice solid metal minis. Yeah, what's not to love. I think if you're considering a warband or a sci-fi sort of based system, and you're considering looking at something that's just a tiny bit sort of unusual, not so weird that you'll really struggle to find rule systems and things to match it, but you want something that's not instantly obvious, I think these models are really cool. I think the idea of sort of fast-moving, aggressive space dwarves is just that little bit sort of more unusual, a little bit sort of a twist and a tweak on things. So well worth stopping by, well worth checking out the campaign, well worth giving it a look over. Okay, next up for our physical model reward campaigns, we've got Pig-Faced Orcs and Bugbears by Hayland Terrain. So a really nice set of old school, sort of old hammer style orcs and bugbears here from an independent miniatures producer. So if you're looking for something with a bit of a gritty old school feel to it, if you're looking to pick up some orcs that have that sort of dirtiness to them, these aren't the sort of modern GW bother boy style orcs. These have got a bit more of a darkness to them, a bit more of a grit to them, which I think is really cool and gives some different options for mixing things up and telling a different story and a different theming. Definitely check these guys out. As I say, one of the smaller but reliable producers, Hayland, they've been around for a while, so there's a good solid reasonable level of guarantee here for backing these guys on Kickstarter. And as I say, if you're just looking for something a bit more unusual, maybe you want something with a bit of a theme, a story, I think these orcs and obviously the bugbears as well would work really nicely as enemies within a narrative campaign, a sort of environmental threat, something like that. Well worth checking these guys out, well worth giving them a look over, well worth supporting an independent creator. Yeah, give this one a check out, give it a look over. Okay, last up for our physical model reward campaigns, we've got The Sacred Lance, Knights of Breton by Chris Abbey at Sally Forth. So I've featured Sally Forth a few times on the channel. They put out really lovely stuff, well worth looking over and checking out. Particularly this set, a lance of Breton knights at the moment with, let's say the release of the Old World. Maybe we're looking to pick up a set of French-looking knights that maybe aren't, years and years old and have got a bit more sort of style and just going to stand out on the tabletop from not being like the knights that everybody has been picking up over the last month or two for whatever reason. Maybe we just want to bolster out an army where we've just picked up a starter set, something like that. These are some really lovely looking sculpts, really lovely looking knights, you know, with lots of paintability to them. They've got the classic sort of caparisons, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, for the horses, so lots of area to get some nice patterning on, get some flat painting going, getting sort of some crests doing, you know, all of the nice things we like about nice flat shields and sort of lots of area on a horse to put a bit of creativity into, and always lovely to get some knights with some, you know, crested helmets, things like that. If obviously, yeah, if you're picking up, you know, a certain set of fantasy themed French knights at the moment, definitely check out this campaign. But obviously, also, if you're a historical player, you know, knights make sense within historical gaming. There's a lot of historical gaming out there. These are just lovely sculpts, lovely knights. These guys would work very happily in, let's say, Lion Rampant, something of that nature. And I think, frankly, you know, look, mounted human knights are going to work in every fantasy and historical system you can happen to think of, so you're not going to go too far wrong from picking them up. You get lots of use out of them, and they're really cool sculpts from really cool creators. So swing by, give them a look over, and check them out. Okay, that's it for our physical reward campaigns. Moving on to our STL file campaigns. First up, we've got The Fall of the House of Usher by Illustralia. So opening with this campaign, at least in part, because if you're interested in it, it's going to be in its final 24 hours by the time that I post this video, and because I absolutely love this creator's stuff. I featured them several times on the channel, and they keep putting out even cooler things. I keep refeaturing them. So this is a campaign for the House of Usher. So it's themed and based upon the Vincent Price movie of the same name, and it's a sort of manor house, but it's so cool. It's so much more than just a piece of terrain. It's got a sort of relatively sort of solid, nice looking, nice in inverted commas, version of the house, and it's got a ruined, falling version. So this is very much inspired by the Edgar Allan Poe story. You've got all the sort of bits and pieces. You've got Roderick Usher, you've got the sort of coffin of the sister. You could really play through the whole of the story of the fall of the House of Usher with this set in a sort of miniatures campaign, war game, skirmish system. I love the idea of trying to put together a set of rules for playing out that kind of a narrative story, and this is a set of minis, you know, a set of STLs, you know, to make minis and make the building that can absolutely facilitate doing that. I think if you're interested in narrative sort of stories being played out by miniatures on the tabletop, if you're interested in designing, house ruling, kit bashing, figuring something out that's out of the ordinary, that's a bit more interesting, a bit more sort of unusual, definitely check this campaign out. Check out this creator. All of the stuff they do is super cool and has loads of sort of inspiration and ideas to them. So give them a look over, give this campaign a look over, give it a back, check it out. You won't regret doing it. I definitely don't think so. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Sci-Fi LEDs Volume 1 by Moonshine Miniatures. So this is a really interesting set of STLs, I think. It's a set of generally scatter terrain and bits and pieces for dotting around with a sci-fi theme, obviously, but these are built and designed to have LEDs slotted into them to give lighting effect. So each of the pieces of terrain are designed to be something where having an LED in it, having a light source, is going to make sense thematically for the miniature. The STLs are designed to facilitate you doing that, so really sort of putting them together, there's a set of options here for having sort of dynamic lighting elements on your tabletop that will make sense and look really cool. So obviously there's a bit more sort of work of finding an LED and slotting them in, although very much the STLs have been designed to, as I say, facilitate that for you. But certainly I think if you're the sort of person who gets excited about a tabletop with a really dramatic look to it, a really sort of impactful sort of elements, something that's going to really make people sit up and go, that is super cool, that is that is unusually super cool. I think this is a really great campaign to back. I think it's worth putting the extra bit of effort in. This is one where I think the effort that you put in is absolutely going to come back in the way that people are going to react to and respond to the things you're going to do here. So if that's the sort of thing that excites you, if you're looking to build sci-fi terrain and tabletops that can have a real impact and really make people sit up and take notice, definitely swing by and back this campaign. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Samurai Warfare during the Sengoku Jidai 1467 to 1615 Part 1 by Hokusa 3D Designs. So this is a campaign by a first-time creator, and for a first-time creator this is an extremely impressive campaign. There's a solid amount of units here. I would say small massed battle to large warband scale number of units, although I think, you know, depending on how elite your force is going, you could scale that up to a sort of a full mass battle. Plenty for something of the level of, let's say, Saga in size, or obviously Test of Honor is sort of an immediate one that's going to leap to mind looking at these minis. The minis themselves are absolutely stunning. The STLs are really lovely sculpts. Lots of thought gone into the theme and the design. Obviously lots of research gone in here. These are people who understand the era that they're sort of sculpting to and have managed to make them work for effective and practical 28mm scale miniatures, which is also very important. I sometimes see sort of realistically scaled 28mm minis and I do sort of think, I'm not sure these guys are gonna hold up when they print out. These guys look very much usable, playable, paintable on the tabletop, as well as having that sort of historical detail and some really lovely touches in there. Very much the sort of war fan signaling leader I think is really cool, particularly having sort of multiple different versions of that mini to help have a bit of narrative and sort of be able to use them in different scenarios, different settings. Loads of, you know, really cool things within this set of minis, loads of thought put into them, well worth looking over, checking out and giving a back to. Okay, next up for our STL file campaigns, we've got Siege of Castograd 3D printable grimdark city terrain by War Scenery. So another repeat creator and another creator that I've featured on the channel before because they do really cool stuff and they're well worth featuring. This particular campaign is, I think, particularly cool even for these guys. It's a set of buildings, both in a sort of pre-attack, pre-siege and a damaged, you know, partway through the siege version, which I always think is such a cool touch and gives you so many options to tell a campaign-based story based around a siege. It's also sets of miniatures, not just combatants, although there are some really cool sort of combat orientated minis in here, but some people who might have been caught within the siege, some sort of suitable civilian or civilian adjacent miniatures. And look, all things considered, I think this is a super cool set for telling a, you know, story, a linked together set of campaigns, particularly with it being sort of sci-fi themed miniatures and terrain. You don't, you know, to my mind, see that much stuff supporting the idea of an ongoing civilian or semi-civilian siege within sci-fi settings. You see a fair bit amount of it for historical and fantasy, but this is one of the first I've seen where it's really sort of suggesting that there is a, you know, civilian sort of population within this sci-fi city, walled city, that is being besieged. The buildings are destructible, the civilians are in there. I think it suggests so much in the way of narrative, in the way of house rules, in the way of campaigns. I think it's a set that's really sort of going to be good for inspiration and driving gameplay and driving people to come back to the tabletop and see where the story goes and all that lovely stuff. So yeah, definitely check out this campaign, give it a look over, think a bit about what you can do with those files, because they're really cool. Give them a back and check them out. Okay, last up for our STL file campaigns for this month is Print and Roll Mega Pack 2 by Simon Armstrong. So we have roller sets turn up sort of fairly regularly on Kickstarter. I don't always feature them, but these ones are particularly cool, particularly nice. They're not just roller sets for ground terrain. You quite often see roller sets that are for roads and cobblestones and things of that nature, and sometimes walls. These are roller sets that are like full terrain and building sets. You've got the rollers, you've also got stamps for putting sort of features onto things. So the sets in this particular collection are for a Gothic cathedral, a medieval town square, a dwarven mine, and a sort of orcish style encampment. So you've got like a lot of the bases covered there. You've got historical, you've got fantasy, you've got sci-fi. These guys would work very nicely for a sort of 40k style orcish encampment. And like I say, it's not just for the flat terrain, the floor terrain, although, you know, obviously rollers are a super efficient, super cool way of having a very, very quick, very, very sort of solid and reliable gaming table. You get a piece of MDF board, cover it in modelling clay, roller across your cobblestones. You've got a, you know, ready to play table that's going to be lasting forever and have a real texture to it. But these guys, like I say, allow you to build all sorts of terrain with the stamps and the rollers and sets. You've got, you know, elements here for building things like oil drums and shacks and settlements, and that's something I think really makes these stand out above the normal run of roller sets. So look, if you are a fan of roller sets, and I know that there are a lot of people who really enjoy using them, definitely check this campaign out. These are sort of top end. If you haven't considered using them and you want sort of some solid, quick, easy to put together terrain, give it a look over. It's a really efficient way of putting terrain together. I think you'll be sort of impressed and interested from what you can achieve with them. Okay, that is it for our main campaigns. This month we have a Pay What You Want campaign, and the Pay What You Want campaign for this month is Sci-Fi Supply Outpost 2 3D STL files by Oikos Dizajin. So again, a repeat creator and a repeat Pay What You Want creator. This creator, as I think is standard for Pay What You Want campaigns at the moment, has a Pay What You Want level with upgraded levels to get extra bits and pieces. The Pay What You Want level is really nice here, as is often the case with this creator. It's not a sort of, well, you can pay what you want for this element, but you're obviously going to upgrade. I think the Pay What You Want level is just well worth it on its own. It's a sort of sci-fi desert hab with some scatter terrain and bits and pieces, which is a little bit of extra generosity that you don't always get on Pay What You Want levels. If you want to upgrade through, it's a whole sci-fi desert settlement that you've got going on here. Really cool stuff. Like I say, this is a repeat creator, a reliable creator, someone who keeps coming back to Kickstarter, keeps turning out projects and keeps delivering projects of a high standard, and I have no doubt whatsoever that this one is going to be at that same standard. If you want to fill out a sci-fi desert themed tabletop, for a very reasonable price. You know, go in, back this at the higher level. If you just want to pick up a little bit and piece here and there, slot it in the library, put it out when you want to, this is a really, really strong pay what you want level. So definitely go by, swing past, you know, back at least at that pay what you want level. There's no sane reason not to. And I suggest probably looking at the upgrades, swinging through, you know, getting some extra bits and pieces. Okay, that is it for this month. A good spread of projects, I think. There we've got some games, we've got accessories, you know, a lovely, nice set of various projects. As I say, you know, we're going monthly with the roundup, and I think it's working nicely at the moment. I'm very happy with it. That's going to be it for March. As usual, there's going to be a game design chat with myself and Mike Hutchinson coming up this weekend on the channel. I'll be back again next month for another roundup. If you're backing any of these campaigns, please do swing down to the comment section. Let me know what you're backing, why you're backing it, what you're interested in, what you're looking forward to. Also, while you're down there in the links, why not swing by our Discord, tell us what you're backing, and swing over to Mike's Patreon. Give us a bit of support there, help the channel to keep doing what it's doing. But for now, and until next month, from the Kickstarter roundups at least, it's going to be a thank you and goodbye. So thanks and bye-bye. Bye-bye. Not certain that the lighting decision was the correct one, but I think the camera looks kind of cool.